Morocco has always captured my imagination. It could be growing up on classic films like Lawrence of Arabia and Casablanca, but for whatever reason, I've always wanted to go, and I've never got the chance. So finally in 2018 with my good friend Iain, we carved out one whole week to just lose ourselves in Morocco. From Fez to Rabat, Casablanca to Marrakesh. Come join us.
Definitely feel a lot more comfortable now after a day in Fez, day in Morocco. It is a bit exhausting, the amount of people that are constantly coming up to you and trying to hustle you and hassle you, but it is exciting and it is worth it. Like the trip itself is great. I think it just depends on the personality. I also realized and learned that if you're white and you have a beard, basically like 80% of the guys in Morocco are going to call you Alibaba. So that's interesting. Did not know that. So this will be our first attempt to get a local taxi, a petite taxi, to the train station. Apparently we've been told it should be about 12 dirham for a local, but since we're tourists, it'll be 20 dirham.
So we're going to the train station.
As you can see, at times, inventive communication is required if you're a non-Arabic or French-speaking traveller. We manage to always get by, however, and there's almost always someone nearby who's willing to lend a hand at translation.
First taxi. Rousing success.
Success. Taxis are the most relaxed thing in Morocco.
In Fez, anyway. Let's say
Fez. Yeah,
Fez.
in Fez.
Now for our first experience of a Moroccan train.
Travel by train is a delight, and as it turns out, Morocco has a fairly extensive network of rail travel that is both affordable, safe, and more or less efficient. A large portion of this train journey was spent discussing one of the tourist uprising rules of the road we affectionately call the wild card. The wild card is in essence a vehicle for conflict avoidance. The concept is quite simple. Each member of the party gets a predetermined number of wild cards for the trip. A wild card can be played at any time as long as it does not interfere with another person's wild card. A specific restaurant, a particular excursion, an unplanned detour are all perfectly acceptable examples of a wildcard. And since travel in company is inextricably linked to compromise, we find this method both wonderfully simple and rewardingly effective.
What is your thoughts on the wildcard situation?
Great idea.
As you can see, Iain is super excited about it.
As with any new venture, your expectations are always colored by your first encounter. We arrived in Rabat expecting more of Fez, and we couldn't have been more wrong. Rabat is the capital of the country and has a very different feel to the more traditional city several hours away. This UNESCO World Heritage City is fantastic in its own right, but very different from the Morocco we'd experienced so far. Allow me to introduce the Riad. If you want a traditional feel to your Moroccan adventure, I strongly recommend staying in a Riad. In essence, it's a large traditional house built around a central courtyard that is used for meals and socializing. Typically, it will have at least a couple of floors with bedrooms all facing towards the courtyard. Windows tend to be glassless with ornate iron or wood gratings, and the interior is locally crafted and decorated. Most riads come complete with a rooftop terrace.
This room is, honestly, it is really nice. It was very funny though, because one of our main concerns was we were hoping that this riad, like the other riad, would have air conditioning, and we walked in and we were like, so the lady doesn't really speak English, and we're like, air conditioning? And she literally just like pointed to the window, was like, air conditioning.
With our confidence growing, we decided to indulge in some of the delicious looking street food we saw being sold all over the Medina. One of the great pleasures of travel, after all, is sampling the local delicacies.
Well, how's the delicious fresh orange juice?
It's great. It cost me about 20p. It might have been 2 for 4.
Right.
But then we somehow ended up
4 for 1.
Oh, I have no idea what we did.
It was supposed to be, so these things, whatever they are, they're like a savory, almost like a crepe, some sort of vegetables in them, and they are good. But I think they were supposed to be like 4 for 2, but we ended up 1 for 4. So I don't know how they work those maths, but we got had. But they're good.
After wandering through the Medina and filling up on local snacks, we headed toward the Kasbah of the Udayas, a beautiful and ancient part of this historic city where we could look across the river at Saleh and out to the Atlantic Ocean, to complete yet another objective on our epic quest of personal discovery. And of course, there's always time for a couple more snacks.
So I got a delicious donut, or a Moroccan version. Would you like some?
Sure would.
Now this is a 2 that was actually a 2, which is great. Not a 2 that is a 4. What's the synopsis?
I'm getting one.
Oh,
I'm
we are going back. They were that good.
Man, that's great.
Oh wow, they are. If you can get a 2 dirham donut, which is like probably 20p, do it. And was I right?
It's a good city.
We finally had our first taste of haggling. So I got a sweet poster that the man in the shop said was worth 50 dirham. And I said it was worth 20 dirham. So he proceeded to say 40 dirham, and I said 20 dirham, and he said no. And I said goodbye, and then he said, wait, 20 dirham, I do it for you. So 20 dirham, new poster, love it.
After a very hot and exciting day of train journeys, attempts to communicate with locals, bartering, fantastic views, and delightful local food, what else was there to do but go for more food? As you can tell, food is very important to us on tour. The dinner was great and felt more authentic than our fare the night before, Coke Zero aside. That night we did go to a hammam, and it is an experience in and of itself, but as you can well appreciate, there was no footage of this particular part of the adventure. This truly was becoming the journey that just kept on giving, and I was very excited for my first wild card of the trip that would take place the next day, Casablanca.